begins. Healing grows and every conversation brings us closer to a healthier mind. And today I have my special guest. He is a writer, business owner, advocate, sensory friendly events specialist, none other than Mr. Thomas R. Wilson.
Hello,
Welcome
hello.
back. Yes, welcome back once again, Mr. Thomas on Mental Health 101. And can you please introduce more about yourself so that I
Absolutely. So, like said, I'm an advocate, storyteller, writer, business owner, educator, so many different roles, but I am also a member of the neurospicy community and the mental health community, working to just help spread awareness, help spread kindness, help spread empathy in ways that empower and uplift people, while also highlighting very real stories and using stories to help people feel more connected to the world around them.
connected to the world. And Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for connecting with us. And hoping for the best. And yes, our cheering squad is cheering at you. And again, thank you. So today let's talk about what emotional resilience really means, moving beyond cliches to define resilience as adaptive capacity under stress. And of course, cliche around resilience. What are the most harmful or empty cliches you hear people repeat about resilience and what they do more damage than good?
So I think the first one, and I think it is honestly meant to be a kind cliche, but it's definitely a cliche. I think when it comes to resiliency, people forget that we're not perfect. So no matter how resilient we are one day, it doesn't mean we're not going to struggle or have a really hard day or even succumb to our own limitations. And I think a lot of people forget that when we have these conversations. People forget that the idea of becoming resilient does not mean we're impervious to pain or hardships or misery or all of these things. And I think the other thing that coinciding with that that people forget about is resiliency is not a finished product at any time. Living a resilient life means living a life that is continually one dedicated to the effort, the purpose, the well being of ourselves. And sometimes that also means that we have to step aside and not support other people. Sometimes that means we may become the confidant for other people, but it is a daily practice and a daily dedication. And I can speak from experience here. When I don't put in my daily effort to live my best life, I do falter. I do fall. I get more irritated. I get more depressed very easily. And I'm not saying that we have to be perfect every day, but we have to put in the work, especially when we have people who rely on us. And the third thing that I think is really a cliche, but I think it's also deeply harmful, is the attitude towards resilience. I know there's a lot of people in today's day and age who still believe that going to therapy is weakness, or they believe that, as a masculine male, you're automatically resilient, or as a mother, you're automatically resilient. But I think in that there's also a lot of judgment towards people who are working on their resiliency journey. And one, no one's automatically resilient because they're a parent, a partner, a sibling, a brother, whatever it is, um, because it's work. It's, just because we're resilient doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. But at the same time, being willing to start that journey, being willing to be there for people, being willing to ask for help and access our resources is crucial. And there's a lot of cliched bias against that. And I'm not here to call out anyone for their masculinity or being a mom or anything like that. But what I am saying is believing that It's just an inherent part of us is not accurate. And also, it is totally okay to seek help, to pursue your wellness, and also to ask for support. And that doesn't make us weaker.
Mm, very well said, Mr. Thomas. It's okay not to be okay, people. If you need help, please do ask for help. In many workplaces and even families, resilience is used as a weapon. You just need to be more resilient instead of addressing systemic problems. How do you distinguish between genuine resilience building a victim blaming disguise as encouragement?
My goodness, you always have the best questions. I actually
Thank you.
mentioned this to a few people. I love the questions you have. Um, so I'm gonna say, and I love that you had the victim blaming aspect of that and how it can be used as a weapon. And yes, there is a very substantial part of our culture around the world that utilizes victim blaming as a weapon. We often look at people who are going through resiliency journeys as unfortunately they get labeled, they get placed, they get judged within the realm of they're not good enough or their journey is in progress, which is sometimes something that really bothers me because that mindset can also be very dehumanizing and very limiting. And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying when we use it in a toxic way, it's bad to hold someone back. But I think a key difference between genuine wellness journey and one where it's weaponized is actual support. So people in our lives have to genuinely want us to do better. They have to genuinely support us. And I want to emphasize, because you also brought this up, that does not mean the people in our lives telling us that we are a diagnosis, telling us that we just need to do better, or even not listening to us when we reach out to them. But I think it's also in that a genuine wellness journey, a pathway utilizing supports also has to be inherently focused and it has to utilize intentionality. There's a very different thing than going through addiction and kind of just going through the paces to pacify people versus actually putting in the work and taking accountability. On the other side, there's a very big difference between going to therapy because, quote unquote, your family wants you to, and you're not really working with your therapist. On the and to kind of summarize this, guys, is I could say so much about this. It really is the intentionality, it is the purpose, it is the support that comes from a place of genuine desire to grow and get better. Um, and when we weaponize those mindsets, we are basically removing someone from the value of who they are and restricting them down to whatever their journey is in that moment. And I think one of the key and seriousness in which supports and family members and workplaces can have when it comes to that, and that can very easily become a hostile environment. It can become one where people, and I'm not going to say their diagnosis again, but they're reduced down to the, oh, I feel bad for them, or I'm going to pity this person. And there's a very significant difference between pitying someone and applying an empathetic mindset to their journey.
Very well said, Mr. Thomas, and also thank you for those empowering and inspiring answer, and even they are impromptu. Thank you so much. In resilient or is resilience primarily a psychological or does it have a biological basis? What is happening in the nervous system when someone demonstrates a genuine adaptive capacity?
So I was actually just talking to someone about this, and I don't think resilience is just psychological. I do think it is physical, spiritual. It is how we train our thoughts. It's how we think. And I don't want to dissuade anyone in this, but yeah, there. If our nervous system is off and it's firing and it's not getting the rest and reboot it needs, we're going to be burnt out. Um, I was just talking to a family member who was asking me if I, do X, Y, and Z regarding like certain teas to reset my nervous system. And I was trying to tell them, and I'm going to be telling them more about it today, that I have to be careful because I take medications to help in my wellness journey. And I know that some people may not like that, but it helps me. And I think that's part of it is we all have individual wellness journeys and we all have different pathways in order to reboot our nervous system. And when I say reboot our nervous system, I mean like calm it down, help it to get to a point where it's not firing. We aren't overstressed, overwhelmed, constantly in a state of panic or worry or distress. And this last month, February, was a very overwhelming month for me. But my system of rebooting my nervous system is diving into my passions. It's playing video games. It's drinking teas that are safe for my medications. And I think there are ways that we can reset our nervous system and let that kind of start over like a video game. But at the same time, I want to emphasize for those of us who are kind of overwhelmed, overstressed, as was so expertly said, it's okay to not be okay. But when it comes to our nervous system and when it's overwhelmed and this biological component that is so inherently true to resiliency, where if our body is overwhelmed, we're not going to be as resilient as we want to be. Um, it is fine to find that thing that helps you ease your anxiety, helps you reset your nervous system, because contradictory to a lot of different things, human beings are one whole unit. And so when we have a biological impact and a mental impact affecting our resiliency, we're just not going to be where we need to be. And to summarize this, because again, I could ramble on and talk and talk and talk, um, but we have to find that balance between the biological, the mental, and sometimes even the spiritual, so we can attune each of those pieces and allow ourselves to be resilient for ourselves, but also for our communities.
Beautifully articulated, Mr. Thomas. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. This is perhaps the most resilient cliche. What's wrong with it, and what does it miss about the reality of a trauma and growth?
So I love that you brought this up as well. I think the mindset, and I nodded to it because I do agree with this to a degree.
Mm,
With the comment of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I can't remember the show or the video where it was, but somebody was talking about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and the other character in it said, well, if you lose a limb, you may survive, but you don't have a limb. And I think that's very accurate because we as people kind of forget about the difference between surviving and thriving. And I think a lot of people have a mindset of, oh, trauma, you just move on from trauma. You just power through trauma. You just power through your mental health struggles. And sometimes that is very valid. If that's what you need to do and that is your only option, you power through so you can get to the day where you can thrive. And believe me, I've been there. I've been in some very dark spaces in my life, and the only way I survived them was powering through. Um, at the same time, though, what that misses and what that mentality misses is that trauma is not just psychological. It impacts our whole bodies. It impacts our perception of the world. It impacts how we view ourselves, our self esteem, our motivations, our daily life. And while I agree with what doesn't kill us makes us stronger, we kind of jump from what doesn't kill us to what makes us stronger, and we miss the middle pieces of all the messy kind of awfulness. And so, again, I encourage people to thrive. I encourage you that if you need a moment, if you're triggered and you need a moment to step away, step away. It also misses the core of humanity. Human beings are messy. We are complicated. We are often restrained by societal norms. And because of that saying of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is also limited by the intention of it. Um, it misses the desire, that limitation misses the desire for empathy, for support, for connection, for empowerment. Um, and so, in all of that, it really misses what is human. It misses that messiness. And I want to emphasize for people listening to this today, if your journey is messy, that's a good thing. Figuring out how to sort a mess, figuring out how to put it together, how to clean it up. There's so much value in how that can teach us about ourselves and how that can teach us to perceive the world. And so, if you're depressed or you are struggling with anxiety or you're worried, which I'm pretty sure we all are at this point, I encourage you to embrace the mess because there's a lot of beauty in the journey of that mess. And just, I said I would wrap this up, but I'm continuing on. The one last thing I would like to say is if people are telling you that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, I encourage you to explain to them how that limits you, how that defames or degrades your personal journey. But I also encourage you to do it in a way that effectively and well represents you. So instead of yelling or being hostile, I encourage calm conversations that clearly explore that because that is also part of it. And I also want to emphasize one last time, I want everybody to get to a point where you thrive and not just survive.
Indeed, a powerful statement, Mr. Thomas. So let's talk about the grit narrative. Angela Duckworth, grit research has been widely popularized. How does your understanding of adaptive capacity align with the differ from the grit framework?
Oh my gosh. So I love that question as well. I want to emphasize adaptive frameworks. I think so. I want to highlight. I think that grieving is a very, in itself, very messy process. And I know when we go, I think it's like the 7 stages of grieving. I can't fully remember right now. My problem with that mentality is that people forget that grieving is not linear. And actually, the MCU did one of my favorite quotes of all time, which is, "What is grief but love continuing on?" And while a lot of people take the grieving framework and they limit people and kind of judge them or belittle them or don't offer them support, we forget in those moments that grieving can last a lifetime. Grieving can be for any human experience. We can grieve anything and everything. But I think we also forget that grieving is not going to look the same way for other people. And that's where adaptive frameworks come in. Acknowledging that someone is having a bad day and they are grieving can support someone. Understanding that someone's tears are going to look different person to person. And what I mean by that is how they cry, why they cry. The emphasis put into why they are crying is different, but also adaptive pathways and adaptive methods can also better support someone. Instead of saying, we are going to get you through this, we can say, we are going to walk hand in hand with you. Instead of saying you need to get over this grief, we can say, how can we better support you? And even within that, even just outside of giving someone the authority and autonomy to grieve how they actually need to, we can also understand that grieving in a, adaptive frameworks are structured. Grieving in this structured framework also allows for more empathetic and compassionate understanding of a person's grief, especially because, and I've been through this scenario where I've been at work and I lost someone I loved, and I was taking time to process that while I was doing work, and I got written up because people were like, "Oh, well, you took too much time to grieve. You weren't here enough," which I do appreciate and value and understand. But for me, that became my grief was a reason to be punitive against me. And unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. So adaptive frameworks can move that from a punitive or judgmental mindset ultimately to a collaborative, supportive, and cooperative experience for people so they can heal in a different way.
Again, Mr. Thomas, empowering answer as usual. So, to wrap up our discussion for today, after all your work in mental health, storytelling, and community building, what question about resilience are you still trying to answer? What don't you yet understand about how humans adapt to stress?
So I'm gonna be honest. The one that I'm still trying to answer, and this is somewhat reflected inward just about myself, um, is why, as a society, we find the need to be so judgmental towards people going through their own healing journey. I know a good chunk of reasons, from societal bias to mental health bias to stigma around that, but it's still I have not found an answer that I fully appreciate when it comes to just how awful we are to one another in those healing journeys.
Mm, yes, certainly. How awful we are. And Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your purpose, your whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So I have my email, which is nttrpg@gmail, which I have been promoting for a while. It'll also be in the comments and the links here at the in the discussion. But you can also find me at LinkedIn, which is Thomas Rody Wilson. Rody is a very special name that has been given to me by my community. Additionally, you can find my website. It's a super long email, but I'm also going to be launching camps and programs here in my local community in Colorado to help empower youth through creative storytelling and Dungeons and Dragons. And then additionally, I'll make sure my link tree is provided, and I will work to update that today because there's many exciting programs that I can't go into yet. But I will say there are going to be some awesome programs happening very soon.
Well, good luck for that, Mr. Thomas, and looking forward for more success. And you are most welcome anytime, anywhere on a Mental Health 101. And let's talk about something good that's empower your community, our community all over the world. So, Mr. Thomas, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More time, people. See you soon.